And fans, welcome to Sports Chat on this rainy Monday evening where the Lady Cougars lead the Lady Panthers of Powell at the half, 22-20.
Yeah, hopefully they win. They're already in the regional as of this speaking.
A win tonight would put them at home.
They'll be playing at home in a couple of days, or maybe by the time you see this, they will already played at home. We're not sure yet, but good season for them. Coach Browning hasn't played well in the tournament. Getting to play in that next round, you can't win. You can't go to state without getting to the region.
Right, and they're playing well, and it's a good time to come out and play well. I imagine Jamie Minot's hand is healed up enough that it's no longer an issue. Hannah Owens seems to be hitting well. Caudill, they got a lot of strengths on that team.
Well, Browning's a very, very good coach. He a lot of experience in getting his teams to play well in tournaments. Actually won the tournament a couple of years ago. So he's doing a fine job with them. The boys unfortunately lost, and their season's over. It's a pretty tough year for them. Had some pretty big wins, had some pretty tough losses. Program, it's going in the right direction though. Just need a few more key players, make a few more key plays next year, but I'm sure Matt Housey will have them ready to go.
Right, and it's one of those things. Of course, there's some people that he's already on the hot seat with nobody important. But, I mean, he had two very productive seasons. He had a little bit of a letdown this year, but it's not, it's not a UT proportion thing. I said he's had two really good open seasons.
Honestly, I don't see that, he's not really wasting a bunch of talent or anything. He's got some good players, and he's getting pretty good results, and you want to have some better players, and he'll make the players better, and the players will make themselves better as they head into a lot of key seniors will be playing next year. And some freshmen this year that were very good, had some injuries early in the season. They'll be healed up and hopefully ready to go next year. I think Matt, I know he knows how to coach. He did well at Jacksboro. And I think he's doing pretty well up here. He'll be fine, and I'm sure the Cougars will be fine next year. Other than that, on the high school front, spring sports practice started this week. So we're looking at about 3 weeks or so until actual sporting events for the spring get started.
I want to say the first track meet is the 2nd of March, maybe?
2nd or 3rd, somewhere around in there. Baseball and softball will also be starting then, as well as boys soccer.
And tennis.
And tennis will be starting.
Tennis actually starts a shade later. It's the latest starting of the sports, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It may start about the same time as soccer.
There are not as many tennis matches that you're going to have. And like I said, we've talked before plenty of times how scarce it is to get a home match. But there's usually, I think, only 10 or so matches in a season for tennis. And I figure if you get one of those at home, you'll be lucky. So if they are here, go see them.
Right, and otherwise, J.C. Park in Clinton is not a long drive.
Yeah, that's not very far. They should play 2 matches down there.
Or they'll play Clinton and AC there. And I'm pretty sure they'll play J. Frank White up in Claiborne County. So go watch them, go eat at the Oasis.
It's close by. Most of their matches aren't just in a few different locations. I think Oak Ridge is probably the only place they play that actually has home tennis courts they use. Generally in Knoxville, they play at Tyson Park.
Or the Smoky Mountain Tennis Academy.
Smoky Mountain Tennis Academy. And J. Frank has courts. It uses LMU's courts. Nice courts. Not a bad drive. None of them are a bad drive, but you just don't get to see the tennis team at home very much. Soccer, they'll probably have 5, 6 home games, I would think. Got the new field going at the football practice field. So get up and see them.
Track's really the same way. There's only the one home event, but several at Anderson County.
Track requires that extra bit of dedication because it happens on Saturdays a lot. And kids have to give up their Saturday to participate in it. Most other sporting events, except for tournaments, generally are held through the week on weekday nights. But track does have the Saturday morning meets. Cross country has those Saturday morning ones too. But they'll rotate. There's usually a couple at Anderson County every year, which is a very close drive. Of course, a big one or two at Oak Ridge.
We got the Oak Ridge Relays and the Dell Leg, both in Oak Ridge.
I think Dell Lake was in Anderson County.
It's the Metro 8 that's at Oak Ridge. Dell Leg is in Anderson County.
But the Cougars will have a home meet, and they generally also have a middle school meet there where Jacksboro on the Follett and some other local middle schools face off against each other in the track and field events. Sad to hear that Ann Browning has retired as track coach.
I'm gonna miss Browning at the track event. She's been a staple of our. I mean, really, she's been a staple of our sporting coverage, all the way going to that ill-fated year that I ran the clock at Jacksboro.
Yeah, Ann, really nice person. Well, when our new show, Nerd Words, gets started, we're going to have Ann down with her Talking Dead team from the high school, her Talking Dead group, hopefully, and have them on that show. But she's going to be a big loss. I'm not sure if they have a fill-in yet or not. I know it's Billy Evans generally is the other coach, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
The way I figure it, honestly, Browning was the distance coach. I figure with Gracie running, they've dragged a Faulkner out there.
So I've not heard that yet. It's possible.
That's just my opinion. That's what I would do. If I had a Faulkner running, I'd go find Coach Faulkner and get him out there.
I think Ann also oversaw the throwing events as well.
She did.
I noticed her. Generally, she was around the throwing events. And but
whereas Evans handled sprints and relays.
It's a big loss, losing her. And her and Billy Ann been together a lot. They each coach a middle school team, and it's just it's going to be strange not seeing her out there. It's going to miss her. But this gives her more time in the classroom, and that's where she's really excels as a history teacher. She affects a lot of people's lives that way.
And she does AP history, which is huge.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody that has her that doesn't just absolutely love her. And, really good teacher, really good person. As a Kentucky fan, that's the unfortunate downside. Everybody, I guess, has got at least some little downside. She likes those Jackal Wildcats.
Yeah, not everybody's perfect, I guess. Also, when you're talking Cougar baseball, they've already got one college signee on that team in Tucker Kane. Now, Tucker's just a good all-around athlete. I mean, he's had some clutch basketball.
He made some big plays for the basketball team in their big win in the district tournament. They actually did get a win in it and hit that game-winning shot a few weeks ago. Good player, good kid. Coach Browning will have him ready on the baseball squad. In baseball, there's a lot of scholarship opportunities. And frankly, baseball's got a lot of minor league opportunities if you're a good enough player. And they have such a vast and just huge minor league system that a lot of people can actually get paid a little bit of money to go play minor league baseball somewhere.
I mean, you look just in Tennessee, you've got the Smokies in Knoxville. You've got the Lookouts in Chattanooga. Nashville has a team. Memphis has a team. And there's a whole, at one point, I don't know if it's still in existence, there was a whole single A league based in the Tri-Cities.
I mean, for the most part, baseball, any city in the country almost with a population over 50 or 60,000 has a minor league baseball team. It seems like they're everywhere. As I say, they have a huge minor league system. The NFL draft is 6 rounds. The NBA draft is 2 rounds. I believe the last time I saw the baseball draft was, I think, 50 or 60 rounds.
I think it's 52 rounds.
It's it's a huge draft. I mean, huge. It goes on for days and days. And they look everywhere for high school prospects. And, you stick them out there. If you don't go to college, you may get signed for a minor league team. And baseball is a unique situation. If you go to play minor league baseball and it doesn't work out, you can actually come back and get put on scholarship at college. It's
Right.
the only sport where you can do that. I'm not sure if you can play baseball. I think you probably still can.
But you hear a lot of football.
I know a lot of people go play minor league baseball and make a few $100,000 a year, $300,000 or $400,000 for a couple or 3 years, and come back and play football. And it's generally very rare that you can play any professional sport and go back to college and play. But baseball also has the 3-year agreement. If you go to college, you have to wait 3 years before you can be drafted.
But you can be drafted right out of high school.
Yeah, you can be drafted out of high school, or you can go 3 years. So that massive minor league system, you can put a lot of players in there, and baseball apparently has lots of money to pay everybody they want to, pretty decent salaries.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've been to Smokies games, and that stadium is often packed.
The Smokies, they're part of the Cubs franchise. the
Gorgeous
AA.
stadium.
And they always have a pretty good bit of success, pretty good team, and generally come close to making the Southern League playoffs or in the Southern League playoffs. I'm not sure if they've won a Southern League championship since the Cubs took over. I think they maybe won a Southern League championship.
Well, they were a Blue Jays.
They were the Blue Jays, but that Cubs curse apparently rolls downhill and has affected the Smokies now. They don't win championships anymore. They just get close. But they're a good franchise. That's a double A. Like I said, there's single A, there's triple A, and they're just all over the country. So a lot of opportunity for baseball players to either get college scholarships or even play professionally compared to other sports.
And of course, you got softball, which also has several home games. They have some experience coming back this year. And Caitlin Ray and Christy Stanley are playing.
It's tough on the softball front. They didn't win any games last year. I don't know what the problem is exactly. It's part of it's participation, but when they've fielded decent numbers on the team, they've still struggled in a couple of games and a couple of times, and it's just been a rough go of the last 4 or 5 years. We'll see if Rebecca Munger can get turned around or not. I don't know. I don't like to talk about coach jobs and stuff being on the line, but it may be getting to the point that hers may be just by the fact that they're struggling. It's not that she's not a good person or a good player.
I know she knows softball. She played college softball.
She does know softball. We'll see. Maybe they'll stick it out with her, but it's tough going year after year and never winning. It's tough on the kids. It's tough on participation on the team and everything. And at some point, you've got to produce some results at all. But they have a struggle with it. And like I say, they've got good individual players, but I don't know. They have a tough time sometimes.
What I'm looking forward to the most, besides spring practice, for this spring is seeing the new boys softball team. Soccer team. Soccer team. Yes, what I said.
Probably going to be a lot of good athletes out for the soccer team. A lot of them that maybe usually would run track may have went over to soccer. It's pretty popular. Apparently Gustavos Rosas is just overjoyed with it, the kicker for Campbell County, and that's went a long way towards keeping Gustavos to come back for his junior year next year. It's the fact that he now has soccer to play here, and it's a huge recruiting tool. I mean, a lot of the really good, like the Farragut's always fields a good football program. They get a lot of really good players on their soccer team, off the football team, and we'll see where that goes. Shane knows a lot about soccer. Actually got the girls in their first every year, got a few wins, and it's hard to ever get a win when you just field the team for the first time. They didn't even have that much time to practice. They didn't have a full season of practice or any kind of off-season work for the soccer team. It literally came about in the middle of July, and they went from the middle of July to playing the actual games in a month or something like that. And that's really tough.
And they play against some good competition. I mean, and if we played in that other district, we would be playing some brutal competition. Farragut and Bearden, which, man, those soccer facilities in West Knoxville are nice.
Oh, they've took it seriously over there for a long time now. We're going to be playing catch-up for a few years, but eventually I think Campbell County will be able to compete pretty well with on the girls and boys front both.
And we've had a good youth soccer program here for a long time.
See how the coaching tree shakes out. Shane said that he would like to continue coaching, but he doesn't know if he's going to have enough time to do boys and girls both year after year. Because it's a big drain on you. Shane's got a job. He's an officer for the Campbell County Sheriff's Department.
And he's the SRO, but he's a road officer in the
So
summer.
when he's not working at Campbell County High School, he's actually patrolling the highways and dealing with door-to-door crime and things like that. So he's a very busy person. It takes a lot out of his schedule to coach 2 different teams. And generally he's at every sporting event you see, and he's always on road games, and he's a very busy person and does a lot for the school, which everybody really likes him up there, so it works out well. I think he'll eventually field a competitive team. I believe they'll probably play a JV schedule this year, that being their first.
The boys
year.
will play JV.
But he told us on this show here a while back, his status for years in the future are up in the air. Hopefully he can stay with one team or the other, but I can understand if he can't, and hopefully they can hire a good good coach to come in.
And, you know, I remember a couple years ago that middle school club level team they had. There's a lot of good players on that. So if that trickles up, he should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have people who are in good shape and able to run for the most part. I mean, a couple of ball handlers that are good with their feet, and you can field a pretty decent team if you can get all that. It's not that easy to get all that because it's a demanding sport. It's hard to score in, obviously, as you can see generally by the low scores. It's just it's a tough sport to get going in, but I think that, you know, the field level should be pretty competitive. Campbell County has good athletes.
And moving away from the high school sports, even though nobody cares about most of it, the Winter Olympic hockey, that Russia USA game was a whack one.
It doesn't pack the punch that it packed back in the 80s, but it's still a big win for the USA hockey team.
Over the
Beat
home
the
team,
Russians
too.
on their home ice with Vladimir Putin in attendance. It was almost like Rocky IV.
You know, some of those Russian players ain't gonna see their families again after that loss.
No, they'll bury them somewhere in Siberia.
But you know, that's one part of the Winter Olympics that people care about.
Well, that we care about, I should say.
Yeah, well,
For some reason, people love ice dancing. I'm not sure why, but
it boggles my mind too.
it's generally one of the more popular events there. I hate sports generally that have to be judged because the judging is almost always biased, and especially if you get a Chinese or a Russian judge in there, you just forget about it.
Well, you can blindfold those Chinese judges with dental floss too. So I mean, you don't know what they're seeing.
I'm sure your grandmother would appreciate that sentence.
Well, you know, on the collegiate level, of course, the basketball woes continue on Rocky Top.
Yeah, the Bruce Pearl momentum is at a fever pitch right now. I'm sure they'll never publicly admit it, but I know that it's got to be killing the administration at UT. The fan petition started a few days ago. I signed it. It had 150 signatures when I signed it. Now it's got 8,000 signatures in just a few days. People love Bruce Pearl. They want him back.
Even if he lost, you had an exciting basketball game.
I mean, he's a big winner, of course. The penalty he got from the NCAA was ridiculous for the level of thing he did. As an analogy, he essentially got, you know, life in prison for jaywalking. And then you have people like Frank Haith who are out murdering people.
Right, and you just
and got a 5-game suspension for it. And Bruce Pearl got 3.5 years. He got an 8-game suspension from the SEC for something he didn't even do. The NCAA found he was not guilty of any kind of bump violation. There was no.
Now, how do you get an 8-game suspension for a bump violation?
But he got an 8-game suspension for that. Then he.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous what they did with Pearl.
He gets a 5-game suspension, or he gets a 3-year suspension for the other line. They knew Frank Haith lied to the NCAA. No doubt about that. Frank Haith told 4 different stories. They were buying players. I looked up everybody who's ever gotten a show cause from the NCAA. The only person who ever got a show cause after lying about it was all generally they were all for something that involved lying to the NCAA, which every coach pretty much does. It's according to whether they can pin it on you or not. The ones they can pin it on, they get show causes to. The Baylor coach covered up murder. One of his players murdered somebody. And he instructed his team to tell the other team, tell the media and everybody in the NCAA that player that got murdered was a drug dealer. And just all sorts of scandal at Baylor. Some of the other coaches got show causes, generally were for paying players openly. And getting caught paying players, major violations. And then you have Pearl, who got the show cause for
Something that's not even a violation.
lying about what was a secondary violation, a very minor one at that, and then something that ended up being not a violation. I mean, NCAA immediately changed their rules, and they realized how stupid it was to have that rule. And so Pearl was lumped in with that group. It's ridiculous. The UT administration hung him out to dry. I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know if Pearl will come back or not. In my opinion, you make him say no. You make him a big offer, make him say no. Otherwise, your fan base is going to be so mad at you. I see bunches of people vowing not to go to games anymore, and they're serious when they say that about basketball games.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that about football games, but I've been in the Thompson Bowling Arena when nobody cared.
It gets down. People get down quickly, especially if Butch Jones rebuilds a football program like it appears he's going to. You're going to look over there, and there are going to be 5,000 or 6,000 people in that arena like there was during the late weight Houston era. And even if Tennessee slips into the tournament this year, right now, I think they're going to go 4-2 to close the regular season. I don't think they'll make it with that. Some people think they will make it. Tennessee's RPI slipped into the mid-50s. That's too low to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large bid. Most people have us either in the last 4 out right now or on the
outside.
Pretty much the last team in or on the last 4 out. I think one guy has us. I think Lenardi has us in the bracket in the play-in game. Which is,
God, how embarrassing is that?
I mean, better than the NIT, but with the team that came back, that was expected to be a 4 to 6 seed and expected to compete right in the top 25 all year against a bad SEC. You look at it this way: watching the game, the announcers were talking about us having probably the best front court in the SEC,
Right.
with Jarnell Stokes, and
Maimon.
and a couple other guys, and then you have Jordan McRae, who's arguably the best individual player in the SEC. He's in the top 2 in scoring, unstoppably. He had 30-something points against Missouri. Still couldn't win because after Stokes went 6 for 7 from the floor in the first half, they stopped throwing in the ball at all. There was just no.
The play calling is inexplicable.
Yeah, I mean, there's no effort to get Stokes the ball. He was dominating. You got your 6'9", 275-pound guy making every shot he takes, and then you stop throwing in the ball in the post. The bad thing, Missouri's big men who had been killing Tennessee in the game were in foul trouble. So Stokes got them in foul trouble. They stopped going to Stokes at all. That allowed the big men to stay in the game. We had been playing a 1-3-1 effectively the last couple of weeks in brief spurts. Missouri's killing us on the drive. We can't stop them from their point guard from getting into the paint. You'd think go to the zone at that point, pack it into the paint. That 1-3-1, and you have the line. You have Stokes and Maimon and Jordan McRae, standing there right around the paint. And it's very effective at stopping penetration. Never switched to that. I mean, the announcers were saying, well, I don't understand why Tennessee's not switching to their 1-3-1. They use it effectively against Florida, which they did use it effectively against Florida. And then with the last 3 minutes to go, they quit playing it against Florida. Florida immediately hit a three-pointer, an open three-pointer from the top of the key as soon as we went out of that 1-3-1. And that pretty much sealed that game. But it's just no coaching adjustments, no constant mistakes.
He just sits there.
I don't see how he can keep his job. I mean, UT, I know, doesn't want to pay a buyout, but his buyout's not that much now. It's like $1 million. And that's a lot of money, but compared to the $5-6 million football buyouts that we've given.
How quick does Pearl bring $1 million back into the program?
Immediately.
Merchandise sales.
If Bruce Pearl was hired as a coach, any buyout for Conzo Martin would be made up in probably the first half of the next season. That's how much attendance would go up. The profits on the basketball program went up $6 million a year when Pearl was there.
Which is why you have the nice luxury boxes, the club level.
The luxury boxes, the Pratt Pavilion, I think, the big giant practice facility. I mean, that was Pearl. When UT started selling 19,000 tickets a night, and actually those people were buying tickets and coming to games and buying popcorn. Roy Williams joked about Buzz Peterson shouldn't be expected to sell popcorn when they were firing him. Bruce Pearl's concession stand sales went up, and I want to say UT made an extra $800,000 on the season
in concessions.
On concession stands compared to what they had been making. I mean, his economic impact is huge. He lives in Knoxville. He coached here. Wants to get back into coaching. Loves Tennessee. He still wears orange and white ties, and he still talks about Tennessee on Twitter, and he calls Tennessee we. His kids are in school here. Stephen Pearl's having a radio show here. I don't see what the downside could possibly be. I mean,
his wife has an established salon here.
If Louisville can rehire
Petrino
after all the shenanigans he pulled, after all the stuff that he did there, you know what Louisville has? They have a very good AD who likes to win in sporting events. And he hired the best coach available, and that was Bobby Petrino, regardless of any past history he had with Louisville and any wrongdoings he may have did at Arkansas or whatever. Bobby Petrino wins football games, and he knew that, so he hired him. It's a business. And that's why you should hire Bruce Pearl, if Pearl will take the job. I don't know if Pearl will take the job, but you at least have to offer it to him.
And if Pearl didn't take the job, it's not a slight towards the fans. It's a
No.
slight towards the administration.
No, the administration didn't have his back in this NCAA proceeding.
I mean, I would love to see Leatherface go visit Jimmy Cheek.
Now, you look at it this way. Miami stood up to the NCAA. They fought them tooth and nail, argued for their cause. NCAA overstepped its bounds, illegally obtained a bunch of stuff, and that's why the penalties against Miami were nothing. The NCAA had no legal standing to do what they were trying to do, and did it illegally, and they knew they couldn't hammer Miami after that, so they pretty much compromised and gave everybody slaps on the wrist. NCAA's toothless if it comes to actual getting into
Doug
the
Dickey that would never happen when Doug Dickey was AD here.
Well, it might have. He probably just sold the basketball program completely.
That's true.
To protect the football program. That's what UT was doing. They pretty much just said, bring it on. We'll bend over for you. Lay whatever you want to on us. We don't care about Bruce Pearl. We'll throw him under the bus. Think about it. Before Pearl went in and lied to the NCAA investigators, the UT administration had the picture that the NCAA had. They knew it. They did not tell Bruce Pearl that picture existed. They didn't say a word to it. They just let Bruce Pearl walk in blind. If they had just told Pearl that they had the picture, he would have went in there and said, fine, you got me in secondary violation, it's over. But they didn't. They felt that Pearl was out of control in their word. He had 90, I think, impermissible phone calls, which averaged out to 2 or 3 a month during his tenure. UConn, during the same time frame, had like 2,000 impermissible phone calls and got much. Jim Calhoun got nothing. I think Jim Calhoun got a 3-game suspension or 4. Won the national title that same year and retired. Then UConn went on full probation. Did nothing to UConn for paying a player and making thousands of impermissible calls. And just, Tennessee and Pearl got screwed, and Tennessee bent over for it. It was during the Lane Kiffin brouhaha with the football team, and they just wanted the NCAA satisfied and had a notch when they sacrificed Bruce Pearl to get it. And turns out, of course, Kiffin's violations were secondary as well, and added up to nothing. And just maybe a few scholarship losses here and there. I mean, the worst thing we did was hire Dooley and Martin.
That unfortunately was pretty bad.
Well, they hired coaches based entirely on a safe reputation. What's a safe hire? Not a good hire, not a coach that's going to win games. Just what's the hire that's going to make the NCAA say, oh, that's a good guy. And apparently they chose Conzo Martin and Dooley. And Martin now, this will be his 6th year. If he doesn't make the NCAA tournament, no tournaments in 6 years. You never see a coach really, especially in modern basketball, go 6 years and not make a tournament and keep his job.
Right. I mean, let's see if I can find a update on that Lady Cougars score, but yeah, it's just unheard of for somebody like Martin to continue on as a head coach anywhere at this point.
Yeah, I mean, people have said you got to give Martin 4 years, but that's a football mentality. Football, it takes 4 years. You should be seeing progress in year 3. A lot of it, obviously, we didn't see that at Dooley. It was getting worse, but in football, I can understand giving 4 years because that's so many players on a football team, and it takes so many players to make an impact on a football team. Basketball, you can replace your entire team every year, basically.
Kentucky does.
I mean, the Martin's team now is Martin's team. I mean, Mayman and Stokes. Mayman and McCray are it. That's all that's left from the Bruce Pearl era right now on the team. Now, granted, that's 2 of the 3 best players on the team. So I don't see how subtracting them somehow is a benefit to Martin. But
no updates.
it's just, it doesn't take 4 years in basketball. It takes a year or 2 in the era of one and dones, and you can see where you're going. I don't think anybody can look at the team right now and think we're going to be better next year in year 4 than we are in year 3.
And he's done nothing to prove himself a recruiter that can bring somebody in that's game changer.
The recruiting class is average. It's 6th or 7th in the SEC, I think, this year. It does nothing for you. The SEC struggles to get 3 or 4 teams in the NCAA tournament right now. If you're the 5th or 6th best recruiting class and your coach is not excelling in any area at all on the court, you got to move on.
fans, speaking of moving on, that should about wrap it up for Sports Chat tonight. We'll see you next week and hopefully talk about some exciting region basketball.